of course, prior to class, you discuss in class. Now, unless you have class participation, they don't come prepared, most of them. And class participation itself creates problems. The instructors have to be trained to grade, or you have assistants, and the students start questioning the assistants whether they are knowledgeable at all in grading and so on. So, you can ask them to make presentations, because oral presentations are presentation skills, maybe one of the learning goals. So you ask team presentations, individual presentations. One approach I used, which was I am Bangalore, which found useful, was randomly pick a team and randomly pick a person from the team to make a presentation. Now students come to learn this, so I tell them, you've learned in your statistics course, sampling with replacement. It is not sampling without replacement. So if one person is called, doesn't mean for the next case that person will not be called. It is sampling with replacement. That's the best way to understand. They then understand what sampling with replacement is. So evaluation of presentation, evaluation of class participation, and all those are useful. What is the role of the teacher in this? Because that is very important. We want to ensure the learning objectives are broader. Because I have seen, I don't want to quote names, because as with all cases, I also must make my disclaimer. This is not intended. I'm camouflaging the names so that it's not intended to give you the correct way of doing things or the incorrect way. There may be different approaches to doing this. I have seen some people just make the students talk and simply not even bother to summarize, or sometimes summarize what the students have said. But what does the teacher have to say more? Or if there's nothing else, at least he should say that. But often there will be more things to do, more things to say. But I think it's very important that the teacher plays a crucial role, avoiding tangential, unnecessary discussion, especially if you have class participant and everybody wants to participate, right? So you have to be very careful in the way this is used. Okay, anyway, that is generally about the 3 types of research, but let me go on to slightly different topic. I don't know if I have much time, but I will just take another 5 minutes or so. Not slightly difficult, it's relevant to research, but somewhat tangential from what I have talked in the first part. I think many of you have heard Deepak Jain here, right? I don't know, I think he mentioned here also. He said you must go from success to significance. So, these catchy words they can come up with, which is very good. I have been saying that last 2 years in a slightly different way. I've been telling our faculty also, because we have a tenure system which is much like in the US. I tell, when a young faculty are hired, I tell them your first job is that you owe to yourself and to the institute is try and get tenure, because it's up or out kind of a system. If you don't get your tenure in 6-7 years, you have to leave the institution. So your first priority is to do that. Whether it is doing relevant research or whether doing practical research, doesn't matter. The job is to get publications in top-tier journals. After you get your tenure, you then become an associate professor with tenure, so you have more lecturing now. Now you do some maybe case writing, maybe some more practical things. This is where significance comes. Success is achieved when you get tenure. Now you most likely more to significance. And when still you have to still do a considerable amount of research because you have to get promoted to a full professor. And after you get full, I used to say that maybe after you get tenure, maybe 20-30% of your research time can be on more practical-oriented case writing and so on. After you become a full professor, maybe 50% or 60% of your research can be practical. Many schools in the US do that. They don't articulate this way. I think my articulation was probably not as good as Deepak Jain's success to significance. I think you need catchy phrases, I think, so to be successful also. What is this got to do? One of the things is when you do very relevant kinds of things, people don't listen to you. I'm sure many of you won't be listening to me if I wasn't the Dean Emeritus of ISB or Director of IM Bangalore, because you'll not be saying, what is he saying, and so on. So only when you have achieved a certain position, people start listening to you more. So that is where significance comes. In fact, one of the professors, again I won't name him, he said, I spent last 20 years writing all these papers and so on, only now I'm doing some useful work. So people listen. I said, fine. You know what? Do you realize this? What you are doing now is considered as useful because what you have achieved before. So the professor at one of the prominent premier institutions in India, I won't name, and because he was a full professor and did a lot of sort of theoretical work, he is recognized, and now people are willing to listen, or people say, okay, he's doing some useful things and so on. So this is where success to significance comes. Now this is, of course, the panel is about research and so on. So I should talk about relevance to reality. I'll talk about research, relevance, reality of case method and so on, the two that I talked about. Or maybe it should be more appropriately called irrelevance to unreal, maybe. Now what is this relevance? Academic research is, we'll talk about the first type of research where you publish in top tier academic journals. It's considered by many practitioners as irrelevant. I just want to say relevance or irrelevance is very difficult to judge. Of course, a lot of research that is done may never get really recognition, may not get cited, as Professor Misha was saying, and so on. But I don't know how many of you know, Black-Scholes finance people will know financial derivatives. They had a lot of difficulty getting their paper published, and now they have won the Nobel Prize, and it's become, the backbone of financial theory. So, but at the time they wrote, top journals were not willing to publish. There's something crazy kind of thing. So did Markowitz, many of you might have known portfolio theory. I'm using examples from that. Finance is more familiar. He had difficulty publishing our portfolio management and so on. Diversification, variance as a measure of risk and so on. A lot of difficulty, but he also, I think, won or was named one of those. Yeah. So it's very difficult. In a somewhat lighter vein, we talk about, maybe from the corporate world it is coming, productivity and so on. One of the first, maybe not the first, is in industrial engineering, you used to learn about tailors, doing, he felt that people are using their hands and not using their legs when they're doing production. Unfortunately, of course, some of the people hated him because they were, he designed, he wanted the companies to have machines so that people could use both hands and legs at the same time. Modern day, it might be called design thinking. He didn't think along those lines. He thought he meant along the phrases, but he used that. You might say, nowadays, what is Walkman after all? You're walking and listening. And if you go on the freeways in the US sometimes, you might find people shaving while they're driving, and people listening to music, of course, is common everywhere. Unfortunately, of course, Taylor came to be referred to as Speedy Taylor, but modern day thinking is that you can have multitasking at the same time. That was his basic idea. In fact, as I'm talking, maybe some of you may be scrolling your Blackberries and so on. I have seen that so many times happen in meetings. People are sitting and listening and doing their emails and so on. These are multitasking. I think what I'm saying is that these kinds of things are never realized when you first start, and it's only over several years later that they get to be adapted, used, and so on. So basic idea is relevance is difficult to judge, it takes time, and of course a lot of research may not be used, as I said. Now come to reality now. Case studies are supposed to be more real. My question is, are they really real? Because it is viewed through the perception of one or more individuals who talk to people. And talking to CEOs, are they telling the truth? Are they telling the whole truth and nothing but the truth? This is their perception. Mr. Misha was saying about writing a case on IPE, one set is written. I've also been contemplating that I should write a case on ISB before somebody else writes, because I have to put forth my views, right? So I think cases, when they're closer to reality, have a useful function, but let's not get carried away and think they are real. I'll give you two illustrations. one of the leading schools in the world, top ranked, has been written up as a case. Okay. Part of the case I have read, I didn't read the entire case. Now, they have a system, but this will, I may give you away the name of the school, but in any case, they have a system of dean and co-dean. Now, if you read the case by itself, the dean talks about how co-dean can sometimes be difficult, but but the other dean is so good and so on. People don't want to talk ill of others in the public, right? But I know in conversations with a person off the record, nothing, and other people, that they've been having a lot of problems with this two-dean system. But that doesn't come out in the case. Why? Because you're talking to a person. People don't like to wash dirty linen in public, naturally. If it is going to be recorded, going to be written, and that will never come out. And if you are not sure about it, you will think, oh, if you read the case, oh, two-dean system, maybe we should adapt that, because it's working well in that institution and so on. So, well, it's closer to reality, but it's not really real in that sense. IPL case, I saw an IPL case, because it's mostly descriptive, all about talking to Modi. Now I don't know how many of you know, cricket followers, Lalit Modi is having a lot of trouble from the cases and seeing the daylight. But it's again viewed from Lalit Modi's view. In fact, when I read that case, I said, ICL was killed by IPL. He doesn't talk about that killing, but he says something about how he had thought of cricket league even before ICL, maybe true, but the board was not agreeing to it and so on. Later only he was able to convince and so on. But I'm just saying these things that one has to keep in mind. And another example I'll give you, all this leadership research nowadays you find, talking to CEOs interviewing at least it's interview, but based on CEOs, conversations and so on. So I told one of my colleagues who is into leadership research, you say all the CEOs nowadays, incidentally, CEOs read more books than we do. Sometimes I wonder whether what they are doing besides reading books, because you want to get recommendations of top books, you have to ask CEOs, they will tell you what the most popular books are and so on. Now you ask them about what is good management, they will tell you all that is written in the textbooks. Now are they practicing it? You're talking about successful CEOs, you're saying. First of all, problem is defining success, because it's the second main problem. Because what is success? A company that does well for 5 years successful, or somebody that sustains is successful? I don't know, I might have told you this incident, but at the risk of repeating, I'll say. How many of you have read Tom Peters' book, In Search of Excellence? Tom Peters wrote that book, I think in late 80s or early 90s or something like that. He identified 10 companies, he said, that were successful and worth emulating and so on.
Including Professor Philip, Father Bizosa, who is currently or recently awarded the Padma Award, I believe. Our hearty congratulations to him. We come to Rao and Srikanta. In this regard, may I request Professor Philip to speak a few words for us?
Professor Philip is the founding president and former director of IIM Bangalore, was head of the Tata Center of Management.
I said he's got a surprise, so he's not prepared to make a speech at all. And that to make a speech at 1:30, maybe after telling the speaker, is the most terrible thing that one can do. And I was not prepared either. But when we were trained in public speaking at XLR years ago, that was in the 60s, we were told something called thinking on your feet. And that's what I'm going to do right now, and I'll do my speech in 2 minutes. This is a conference on research. The last few days, there are a few interesting things that happened in Bangalore. That included some of the journalists meeting me, and this morning, something reported on the TV there, asking about what is wrong with management education in the country. So, sharing with them some of my thoughts, I said, let me give you some figures. It will be of interest to you also. It's estimated that world over we have 10,000 business schools. Out of this 10,000, 2,500 are in India. So we have 1/4 business schools in the world. And if we add up the BRICS business schools in which we have some interest, one of my colleagues is now in Sao Paulo for a conference on this. We have 3,000 business schools in India and the 4 BRICS countries together, 1/3. But what's the impact that we have made in this field world over? And where do we stand in world rankings? Pretty low, 2,500. And in terms of production of MBAs, we produce almost double of American number. So we overtaken America also long ago in terms of number of business schools and MBA graduates and all that. But we still stand way behind in international rankings. The reason, there is only one reason. We have no research. We have no research to our credit to mention, to publish, to bring the attention of people. And you look at any contribution that we really have made in the field of management education. Really solid. And this has been our weakness, so I would like to compliment Reserach, the president, and all of you. I am so happy to see the great Guruji of research being here, Abadji, who has been always the leader of the initiative. And I said, I was walking up, I said, look, as long as he is here, nobody has done anything. He would have done whatever had to be done. So I'm very happy to see you, and I hope you had I'm sure you had a wonderful time in the morning, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
But the time I request Professor Sambandam, if you could kindly, please chairing the management panel at AICTE, the topmost panel in the country. Kindly, if you would like to come here.
Good afternoon to everyone. Well, I have taken over as a chairman of All India Board of Management Studies very recently. I have yet to get the grip of the administration. I think we held a couple of meetings so far. The first meeting is just to do introduction to each other. And the second meeting we started with some controversial issues. And there we have decided that we are not going to take any decision. So therefore I postponed the meeting, and afterwards I have not held any meeting so far. So I will be planning to call some more meetings in the future to come, maybe after 15 days or so. Now, as everybody has shared their views, I fully agree that all the management school, they have to primarily all the faculties are meant for teaching, but not only for teaching but also for research. Wherever I go, whichever the institute that I visit, either officially or unofficially or personally, I always insist that people should also get into the research, very serious research. I also noticed that there is not much of uniformity that has been followed in this country, either in terms of setting up the syllabus for MBA courses or even for introducing some doctoral courses. I think that somebody has mentioned, who has come from United States, that all the doctoral programs are, at least in the Western countries, all the doctoral programs are heavily loaded with the coursework. First you have to be thorough with all the fundamentals, and then afterwards you fix the area of your specialization for the further research. And that is not happening in this country. And this is my observation, but I don't know whether you agree. I think it is the way that it is planning in the future. The research is not only totally an isolated research, but it has to be, added with the coursework. The coursework gives some fundamental ideas, and then afterwards you can take it further for the specialized research. Now, whenever there is an admission for PhD program, two things that we have to check. It is a big challenge to identify the right person for the right research, but it has been a challenge, though it is a challenge, but there are some solutions for that. First thing is, since he is taken for the research in the management, first you have to see whether he has got any aptitude for the management, first of all. In my experiences, I have seen many researchers, not only in my own institute, but also in many other institutes, starting from IIT, IIMs, and so on and so forth. But then people fail to find out first whether the people who are selected for the research has got any management aptitude. Okay, that's the first thing that you have to check. And once you have done this, and then next you see whether there is any potential for research. If any candidate satisfies the two things, definitely you can produce many more research. Somebody has pointed out that China is well ahead of a country like India in terms of research, producing the research output. Yes, that is true. For the last 2 decades, we have produced only maximum of 5,000 PhDs, not only in management but in considering all other areas. Total PhDs produced in this country for the last 2 decades, maybe it is as less as about 5,000. But whereas in China, I think they have produced 5,000 every year. So you can just find out what is the comparison between India and China. I think we have, many challenges ahead of us, not only for the 21st century, but also other centuries ahead of us. Thank you very much, and it has been
Young, dynamic, former president, Professor Salunke, if you can speak, I think he knows so much, and he must share. And he is leaving for states, so he is so busy, but he could make it. And he has set up a very great institution. We have a very great administration, young dynamic leaders and personal leaders.
I'm sure, I think we are already behind schedule. Nothing probably left from me, but my request to Professor Sabandam and the people on the dais and off the dais who are involved with the policy making, that the due respect and the work for the educationists and the teachers probably have not been given compared to if you look at the industry. And I'm sure probably for us to attract the best talent and to fill in the gap, for having the best intellectual capital to deliver in the classrooms, somewhere we need to raise that bar as well. But somewhere I think from the point of view of that Lakshmi, Goddess Lakshmi have not been considered. Probably it's always been a notion that teachers should only pray and pray and pray only Goddess Saraswati. But somewhere there need to be a blend of Saraswati and Lakshmi together. And if you really look at any of the best Ivy League business schools across the world, it may be kind of George Whitesides in Stanford or Robert Langer in MIT. If the professors there in that world could create a companies that have the market cap of $20 billion, 400 patents, because they have been encouraged and there's a respect and people understand the worth of it. I'm sure somewhere I think this blend of these two things also we should really keep in mind from the policy making point of view, from the individual institutions point of view as well. And I'm sure in AIMS also probably we should try to give further more funding for the research and encourage as much as possible. It will really make a lot of difference. And I'm more than confident, being on the younger side, probably as Professor Mishra ji said, that if we really look forward to the future of this nation, only education and the educationists can transform the nation. Thank you very much. All the best.
No, I think, frankly, I think it's a very great outreach that we have all seen our industries, some of them have spoken, and let us give a big round of applause to Professor Samsila, who is the former chairman of Corporation Bank, very successful chairperson, who lifted Corporation Bank to big height, and now chairman and managing chairman and director of the IDBRT, Institute for Development Banking Research, which is an RBI Research Institute. Sir, would you like to speak?
A memento to our esteemed guest, Dr. Shefali Gautam. Memento.
What will be the probability?
Memento to Dr. Abar Ahmed.
Please come forward. All professors.
Memento to Sri Ramakrishna. Khalid. I request Professor Father Dizosa to come onto the dais for a memento.
IPM, our students may come forward.
I request Professor Ramesh Venkateshwaran to receive a memento. Dr. B.V. Sambikar, I request Dr. B.V. Sambikar to receive a memento. I request Dr. Sadanand Padam to come on to the dais to receive a memento. Dr. Aplay. Officer of Special. And the Impact on Asia, that is edited by Dr. Nandita Sethi and Mr. Balakrishna of IPE.
Well, I speak from a very different, the same subject from a different perspective, having an international experience of 8 years, 6 years in Africa, at Sabah University, Asmara University, and 2 years in Auckland University of Technology and Waikato University at Hamilton. I would like to give, raise certain issues and speak about some challenges that signals proactive measures to be taken by the champions of the business schools and also the faculty members. It's a challenging for me also to wrap up in a very short time. The Indian corporate landscape is changing. Major Indian corporates are going global and the destination point being developed countries. So that shows where we are standing in terms of the corporate. Until now, we were only in IT sector, and before the 2005, our destination points were developing countries. Now the landscape is changed. We are apart from the developing countries, we are focusing on the developed countries, and there is a shift in the pattern of the investments. Greenfield investments taking over by the brownfield investments. So, world is watching us. Indians are known for their determination, hardworking, adaptability, flexibility, and what all. So they are keen to know what is happening in India because the Indian giants had gone abroad. So what is happening here? And likewise, we have seen Indian IT professionals very successful and highly competitive on par with the international standards. They have proved and taken our name, and it has reached far across. Then, I have a question. Can we be proactive in capturing the global gaps? Because there are various opportunities lying abroad. Now I could understand there are also opportunities within the house, within our country. So, in fact, I was presenting a paper in Sydney and I have come across a newspaper saying on 13th of July that the Australian corporates are all ready to set up full-time professional business courses to their executives as an in-house program. So what does this signal to us from the Indian context? Can the Indian business schools produce the business professionals befitting the changing corporate landscape in terms of the industry and in terms of the academia? So that signals a challenge to the business school administrators. In case of the challenges to the Indian emerging scholars, would the IIMs and ISB recruit the Indian PhDs from other than IIMs or overseas? Would you allow the CVs to reach these places? If no, what is the reason behind it? We would like to know so that we can revive them. What message can be given which would allow them to overcome the lapses? So if the above issue is addressed, the Indian scholars can go global and replicate the exercise of the IT professionals. I have experienced myself soon after enrolling into my double PhD program. Within 3 months' time, my paper got selected in APIRA conference in Sydney, where even the head of the Department of Accounting couldn't get selected. So that was really a very, it was an encouraging, and I could know that we can stand internationally and do far better than any others. Well, coming to at this point, I would like the faculty to revive themselves. Until now, we were talking about public sector enterprise undertakings, restructuring programs. That's all well good. They are being addressed, and we have proved it is in the process. But how about us, the faculty? We should be more vibrating, and the environment also should be conducive for this. We need more funding and encouragement. And most of the funding programs, I see age limits. So please, people like me, who have the enthusiasm and passion, should be encouraged to go abroad and learn and publish in the most prestigious or considered journals. Well, coming to the New Zealand case, one of the major challenges that are being faced to the deans is how to raise the enrollments of the international students. What are the attractive destinations? Why are they so? So, India is also considered as one attractive destination. Should we continue to be an attractive destination in allowing our students to go abroad, or vice versa? And there's another very interesting program to the upcoming researchers in New Zealand that I've seen. It's the Performance-Based Research Fund. They fund and they encourage the publications. They encourage you, if your paper gets through, by funding your visits to the conferences, and there's no limitation for that, and you come out with, you have an opportunity, exposure, where you share, seek advices, update the paper, and by the time you produce a PhD, it is a qualitative and it can reach the public domain. So, can India have such kind of programs? And it would be very good and appreciable. And it can, if these kind of measures are taken, I'm sure we can follow the Indian corporate and also the IT professionals. Thank you.
We have at IP instituted a program of visiting professors from abroad, and each year we have over 10 professors. Professor Geeta is on the fellowship, working for 3 months at IP in the area of corporate governance. Professor Latif also will be our visiting professor, and we have about 8 to 10 coming from different parts of the world. The whole idea is to bring enough faculty together. Some of our students will also be going abroad, and we will also have an exchange program.
So I'm here. I thank Mishraji wholeheartedly. He is a man of the, who is the cause for me being here at this point of time, or else I would have been in Hamilton doing or involved in my research work. Is a man where the research vibrations are surrounded. He makes everyone on wheels in IT, in research and academics, and I'm sure people who are known to him understand him better. Thank you.
A very good afternoon to one and all. I know I could sense it the way you are wishing. Well, first I'd like to thank Madam Dr. Shafali Gautam. In spite of her busy schedule, she was kind enough to come down to Southern Region Roundtable and shared her views and the kind of activities what AIMS has taken up. Madam, we are grateful to you for coming down here and sharing your thoughts. I'd like to thank Professor M.R. Rao, a great researcher. We all look forward to him, to his piece of advice, and we eagerly await each time. And your classification of discipline-oriented research and application-oriented research and teaching-oriented research, it certainly brought some new ideas into the minds of our young researchers. We are really extremely thankful to you, Professor Rao. I'd like to especially thank Professor Abbas Ahmed, and he brought a different perspective. We need to look at multidisciplinary nature of management, and doctoral research has to be center stage in any B school. So here with IPE, we give importance to research, and Professor Mishra talks about those issues very much here in this institute. And the point which you brought out, avoid inbreeding, yes, we certainly look forward to such wonderful ideas. Thank you, Professor Abbas, for coming down here and sharing your thoughts. I'd like to thank Professor Manoj Panda, though he started saying that he's not management, but excellent way he brought out the issues of social science research, which are very much center stage in IPE. And the kind of research opportunities which are there, you brought out really helpful to us. I'd like to thank Dr. Ramakrishna, who was kind enough to come down here and talked about two issues he brought in, individual and institutional research, an excellent way of putting up things, and the kind of research opportunities which MDSA can provide us. The young researchers can look the opportunities and the kind of funding that they can support the researchers. I'd like to thank Mr. Shekhar Agarwal. Sir, you are a source of inspiration to all of us. I know we are all eagerly wait for your couplets which you bring in and create the enthusiasm among the audience. And the kind of industry-oriented research which you brought in is certainly we look forward to many such ideas and the kind of funding ways the industry can think about it. I'd like to thank Dr. Latif Said for bringing the issues of what kind of research is going on in the US and what we can do, and in terms of the quality issues which you brought in. I'd like to thank the grand old man but young at heart, Professor Philip. We look forward to you always and the kind of suggestions and advice which you give it to all of us. You're a source of inspiration to many of us present here in this August gathering. I'd like to thank Professor Mandi for bringing in the issues related to the management education and need for imparting the quality research. Certainly we look forward to your advice, sir. And for Saranti, we look forward to your advice from time to time and the kind of issues you touch upon attracting faculty and the kind of compensation or remuneration or the kind of pay packet we need to look at it. It's a very good point. I'm sure it also applies to equally to young researchers take up. And my colleague Geeta Rani, she could bring in the perspectives of overseas what's happening and the kind of activities what IP is doing it. I'd like to thank Professor Mishra ji, who brings in luminaries from the academia and industry and inspire all of us to do a lot more activities. The one point which he said, don't lower your goals to the level of your ability, but raise your abilities to the highest height of your goals. Thank you, Professor Mishra ji, for giving us this wonderful opportunity. May I request all my students and my colleagues to please stand up and give a standing ovation to all these luminaries, including the people of Queens and please.